Cindy Stearns.
And I'm Glenn Stearns.
And this is Grit Happens. Join us as we engage in candid conversations with some of the most successful people in every field and from every walk of life, all with the common thread of grit and a goal of not just surviving, but thriving.
And we hope that the show will help you feel informed, energized, and especially inspired.
So let's get started. This is Grit Happens. And welcome back.
Here we are.
In a second, it's exciting to be back in the studio.
Sure is.
Life
Sure is.
Happening.
How you been?
Hi, how are you?
Haven't seen you in a while.
I know. Nice to see you. I know I've been out of town dealing with some grit, but life is good. We're here and we are so excited. You recently were in an incredible leadership conference, the Trust Edge in Minneapolis, and saw a really incredible lineup of speakers.
That was awesome. Right. Love that.
And so one of them is joining us today.
Can't wait to dig in and.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. You, Dr. Stearns, were one of the speakers. Let's not.
Oh, I was too, wasn't I? I forgot about that. Yes.
Have your own credentials. And so, you know, these conferences are so fabulous because you just go, you get recharged. It's like someone plugs in a battery and just like, okay, life on high. Then it's just great information.
And there's so many amazing people that have so much that go right down the main vein of what we are talking about, right? And you look at life, work, everything that goes on, and there's always things that get in the way, right? It's never perfect. And hence, grit happens, right? And so anyway, so our guest, I'll let you.
I have a kinship to her. She's a former news anchor and left that behind, became a lawyer. She's a business owner, a CEO, a leader, a coach, and really kind of her primary lane is in crisis management. And I think there is so much here to unpack with grit, crisis management, and what's going on in the world today. So we'd like to bring up Roshini Rajkumar.
Hi, Roshini. How are you?
Hello.
I'm great. It's so wonderful to be with you both. Thank you so much.
We're excited to have you with us. And you guys met at the conference.
We did.
Both had a good audience and a good vibe and a good energy.
And you know, there's so much that, you know, in being an entrepreneur and going through building over and over again companies, you know, there is so much to crisis management, right? And yeah, again, Roshini, I know that's like right up your alley. I mean, you speak about that. You're a life coach, you're a CEO coach, and then a lot of it has to do. And your podcast is on crisis management.
Well, if I were to just expand right now, Roshini, we're loving having you on right now because there's a lot of crises going on right now. There is inflation, there's recession, there's a war, there's an election coming up.
Our country is in crisis.
We just came out of a pandemic. Like there's so many things we're dealing with right now. I mean, social media is taking us all over the place. And before we get to really tapping into that, because that's what we want to talk about, I want to know a little bit about you, how you got here, and your little story of grit. Like what shaped you and got you to this place right now to be in the middle of, so to speak, a massive chaotic storm?
Well, what I like to say is my past life and everything I've done up until this moment or the last few years really got me to this crisis specialty. My background, it was in television news. I was a television news reporter and anchor, and I left that world nearly 18 and a half years ago to start my business. And I loved that world. I worked in different markets around the country. My last TV market was Detroit, and there was a lot of grit in Detroit, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Covered various topics, and prior to that had gone to law school planning to become a trial attorney. I did not. I fell in love with TV and that world while I was in college, but I still wanted to go to law school, and I keep my license current. And in my different television markets, I did have the opportunity to really use those skills in how I prepared for stories when I did do anything connected to the law or courts. And even in Tennessee, when I was in the national market, there was a death penalty there. I covered a couple wall-to-wall coverage of death sentences. That's a whole different kind of coverage. And I was always able to use that legal background in that coverage. So fast forward to early 2006, or I guess go back in time to early 2006, as I was winding down the TV news career, deciding to start my own business, I really wanted to bring in the law, the media, the grit and the controversy of life and people. And so these last 17 and a half years in growing the business has really evolved from speaking professionally, as Glenn and I did at the Trust Summit last week or a couple weeks ago, and into bringing the legal background and really working with corporate executives in their personal brand management and strategy and how they execute and how they deliver and how they lead. Well, in that work, crisis would always happen. You know, there would be something we're trying to prevent, or maybe they find themselves in crisis, or maybe a business post has the opportunity to go viral for negative reasons. So all of that is what really got me so interested in the crisis piece of it. And a couple of years ago, I launched, I started preparing, I should say, this idea for my show, The Crisis Files, as a TV pilot. We actually shot that a couple of years ago, but in the process of it being edited, I thought, I don't want to hide this title. Let's do a first iteration as a podcast. So the Crisis Files podcast launched in August 2022. We drop every Monday morning, so we drop weekly, and I have the opportunity to talk in these conversations, which are only about 15 to 20 minutes long, with leaders, thought leaders, with victims who are now advocates, with all kinds of experts. And the mission of the Crisis Files is to prevent crisis in people's worlds. And that's really evolved. I mean, what I first thought was kind of a business show has turned into a very mainstream kind of a show, because we really are, as you've mentioned, we're in a state of perma crisis. It used to be a company, you know, if you get by maybe one crisis in a year, you're kind of lucky. Now it's nearly every day. They have to prevent crisis. They have to worry about what their people are doing. They have to worry about a data breach. There's so many different things that could lead to crisis for either a company or an individual. And I mean, I will tell you, it's really become my mission. I don't mock it. I don't laugh at it, even though we have to have humor as we are trying to prevent crisis. And we do have humor in our lives and on the show for sure. But I will say it has really become my mission. And this past life for me from television news has really lent itself to my current life as I'm coaching leaders and then also talking about crisis, because I anticipate almost the worst case scenario all the time. It's not always the best place to live, but then you can, if you're anticipating the worst, planning for the worst, then usually the things that happen are always better than what you were envisioning.
I'm a crisis person, because Glenn's always like, why are you focusing? Why do you worry about things that are happening all the time? I'm preparing. I'm getting
just deal in the area, the 3 feet around you that you can affect. But I as an entrepreneur, I coach a lot of young entrepreneurs, people that come in and they don't realize crisis is a part of it's part of the cycle. It's you can't avoid it. And it's not about if it happens to you, it's when it happens to you. And then what do you do about it, right? And so having that understanding that it's going to happen. And now to your point, it could be a data breach, it could be embezzlement. There's so many things that can happen in a business. Let's just stay there for a second. And yet you have to learn to adapt and figure that out. And I think that's why having, CEO, coach, coaches and whatnot is a good place, especially young starting, people starting new businesses have to, because a lot of times they get frozen. Oh my gosh, this was not in my business plan, right?
You don't put that in the business plan.
But that's part of what you have to be prepared for, is the things that you don't foresee,
So you kind of break down
Exactly.
The management. There's like different ways of handling. There's preparing, there's preventing it,
Prevention,
preparing it, there's managing it. And then of course, if it happens, then there's a lot of mismanagement that happens. So like if someone is there a generalized like, can you prevent, like, what is the mindset you go in to prevent crisis in a business situation or personal situation? Do you have these broken down, these steps?
So yes, so what I will say, and it's our tagline on the Crisis Files, not a matter of if, but when. Crisis will rock your world, or crisis will happen to you. And that just is, okay? That's a truism. But how you react to crisis starts with you. So step number one is to not panic, okay? You have to not let yourself freeze, because sometimes freezing and inaction can also be a bad reaction.
Right.
So if you go in knowing not a matter of if, but when, and you try to make sure all your people are safe and secure, you've done background checks on your employees, you keep open dialogue with employees and leaders. So if they do have some kind of mishap that's happened, they're not going to hide it from you. They're going to bring it to your IT department or bring it to the boss and say, oops, I opened this email. We might have to worry about a data breach. But it's just better that you have an open line and help people understand. Just communicate with us. Be open. There won't be repercussions, right? Obviously, we don't want people stealing from the company. There's repercussions for that. But you as the person, whether you lead a team or just leading yourself, as Glenn says, those 3 feet around you, what are you doing to just be prepared? You know, are you locking your car door? Are you locking the office drawers? Simple things can prevent a lot of things. Also, on social media, our digital world, it's so different from when I was in television news. You can actually proof your posts. Think about it. If you're angry, don't post, sleep on it, because those kinds of things can get in the way and can cause huge things. And then there are really egregious things. For example, the CEO of McDonald's, he was let go by the board, right? Because he was having an affair with a subordinate, as I understand the story. Well, that's a pretty obvious thing that's going to get you in hot water. So how many risks do you want to let yourself be open to? And that's a personal decision. But as a crisis prevention person, I'm going to say, let's try to firewall off these risks. But if, you know, grit happens or SHIT happens, you have to have an attitude of positivity and non-panic in your reaction.
What we do at our company, what we've done for years, is we almost celebrate our mistakes. And what I mean by that is we want people to bring them up quickly, as you mentioned, because then we can deal with them faster, right? And they're there. And there are times where I've seen groups come in that maybe have a different thought process. They might have some paranoia where they're worried about their bigger bosses and what's going to happen if there's a mistake. So they shut down the communication. Don't talk about it, or we can all get in trouble. All that does is fester, and it creates even more of a problem, right? And so to have that open communication and be able to get to your problem fast is the only way to grow in an organization, because you're always going to have problems. You're always going to have mistakes. Things are going to happen. So it's just, let's not, if someone's over and over doing a mistake, that's an issue. But if you make a mistake and you say, okay, hey, let's move on, let's figure it out, let's go on. But I think the crisis gets bigger when people and the voice is shut down, right?
Make a good point, and I think it's important for leaders of any company to lean into creating an environment of trust. That goes back to the you were, because what we tell our employees, like, we're an open door, here's our cell phone, here, call us if there's anything. And I always say, if we don't know, we can't grow. So we want to hear. We don't, and Glenn often emphasizes to the employees, if something's broken, tell us so we have the opportunity to fix it. Because we don't just want to hear praise all the time. That doesn't make us any better. It confirms that we're doing something right, but it doesn't help us improve. So, creating that environment, I think, is incredibly important in any workspace, and a culture of communication and trust, and that there's no, recourse or, anyone bringing it up.
Well, trust is so important, right? You have nothing if you don't have trust. And what I like to say is each of us in an organization is a brand ambassador for the organization.
Yes.
Even if we're not the spokesperson, you know, even if we're not Glenn Stearns on camera all the time speaking on behalf of the company or getting documented you know, on network news, but each of us is a brand ambassador. And when you think of it that way, you protect your brand. And if there's a mishap, one of my mentors says there are no failures, there are only wins and learnings. So even if something didn't go how you planned, we can learn from it, kind of to Glenn's point. But then if you also couple that with, I'm a brand ambassador, so if something didn't go the way it should have, let's not keep that to myself. Let me share it with our inside team. Let me share it with the boss, because guess what? It's better if you share it yourselves on the inside before some external actor like law enforcement or the federal government or the media come after you from the outside.
Right.
So we want to be brand ambassadors first on the inside, open lines of communication, and that way we can put our best face and our best message forward.
You know, it's funny. I had one time we had somebody in one of our companies take some money, and we ended up catching them. And at the same time, there was some big audits going on, and a lot of the executive team was like, we got to hide it. You know, we can't talk about this. And I said, hide it. I want to put that person out on a big stick, hanging out in front of everybody to see that we have sent in the, you know, the marshals. They are going to jail. We found it, right? It's why hide so, oh, but then it's going to expose a flaw. No, it isn't. People that want to steal from me, they'll figure out a way to do it. If you have bad people, and I had no problem, again, putting them out in front of the whole organization and letting them hang there and because it's again, you can't live through fear. You can't run an organization through fear. You have to be able to realize stuff happens, and you have to be able to address it, and you have to move on from it. And I think it shows strength when you find something and you realize we're addressing it head on instead of worrying about what other people are going to think, because that's not the issue. You know, it's not that something happens to you. Again, it's how you fix it, as we've talked about. You know, another piece of interesting kind of when we get into this deep crisis in 2007 and 8, when the world kind of fell apart, we had the big financial crisis, right? Being in mortgage banking, we were, you know, right in the crosshairs of everything going on, and every mortgage entity around us, they were all dropping. They even had a website called mortgageimplode.com, right? It was an implodometer. Who's going to fail today? And if you were on that site, you were doomed. Even if you were doing okay, people saw it and everybody wouldn't do business with you, you know, and it was horrible. And I remember being at the lowest point. I mean, you know, we were a pretty public facing company. We had, you know, all these buyback loans and class action lawsuits, and lost 85% of our business. And it was the darkest of days. And at the bottom of that, I remember finally going, every big mentor that I've ever been with that have succeeded beyond anybody's wildest imagination, they've all gone through this. And so this just happens to be my turn, right? And it's like, okay, how are we going to get through it now, right? But back to that, instead of freezing, instead of locking up, you've got to realize that it's okay. If I make it through this, when I make it through this, I deserve to be on top. I deserve to be you have to turn turn it around in your head, because you can allow, again, all the demons to rush in and all the fear to come in, and you've got to be able to figure out how to deal with the crisis. And I think that's why when you when you're able to surround yourself with people like you and people that can help come in, because, you know, in my case, I was lucky. I had a group called YPO, the Young Presidents Organization, where I could take these people and go, what the heck am I going to do? Right. And I got a lot of advice. And there's a lot of companies out there that don't have a YPO, you know, so and that's why I think what you do is so important for a lot of people.
You become like a mentor for others. Like that's in some respects, that's so necessary. Have you had a mentor in your life that helped guide you along? Did you find that important to create that for others? Can you expand upon your own experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say nearly at every stage of my life, I've had some mentors, some who have stayed, that I still have, some that were those mentors for certain periods or seasons. And I think it's really important that we're able to get feedback. And when we know it's coming from someone in a loving and trusting relationship or rapport, that all they mean for us is good. And so that it starts with that. You have to be able to listen to that feedback, take it in, and then change course if needed. Now, if there's any distrust, it's going to be hard to really call that person a mentor. And I feel very blessed that whether it was when I was making the decision to really try to get into television news after my real first plan had been to become a trial lawyer, to then once I was in TV news, how to go up in market size, all the different mentors I had along the way. And then when I made the decision near the end of my on-air TV career as a reporter to start my business, I spent about a year brainstorming while I was working in TV. So I reached out to my lawyer, I reached out to some other advisors, and I got advice. So I kind of put those reporting research skills into motion for myself. So it's important to have a few different voices, but it's also important not to get too stuck in like a dozen voices.
Right.
And then really important is your inner narrative. What does your gut say? Don't ever forget your gut. One of my favorite lines from someone as I was researching when I left TV news early 2006, moved back home to Minneapolis to start my business, spoke with a ton of entrepreneurs, business people, got a lot of great advice. One of my best lines that I heard from someone is never give up on yourself. And I have really that's really been inside. It's really led my inner narrative because absolutely there are ups and downs. But if you never give up on yourself, you know that you will get yourself out of even the darkest times. And it can be hard. I mean, life is not easy. But when you have some of those toughest times and you dig yourself out, usually what follows are some of your best times.
Yeah.
You've probably both lived that. I could never have imagined 17 and a half years ago when I left TV news that I would have what I have now, and it's not always about monetary, but whether it's the book, the different stages I've been on, being an analyst on Court TV, the different things that I do. And most importantly, the behind the scenes secret weapon I am to my clients. I really find that rewarding that they find credibility in me to try to make them their best, as well as put on, the best position to prevent crisis in their world. I was really excited. One of my clients earlier this week was at the New York Stock Exchange revealing their new slogan, and their CEO was interviewed on Squawk Box. It was really fun to watch, knowing that several of those leaders over the last years, I have been their coach and have sort of seen some of the behind the scenes that got them to this day. So those are the kinds of things that it's important to also stay humble and know that you don't have all the answers.
So go ahead. No, well, I was just going to say one thing real quick, which is, again, because so many young people that watch, they have to understand you can't do it on your own, right? It's so difficult to have all the answers, and you need coaches or you need people that can help you, because you're going to run into so many different situations or crises where you're going to have people that that have maybe already been down that road to keep you, so you don't give up on yourself and you realize this too shall pass, right? That we'll get through it. Go ahead. What were you saying?
I think to that note, I think some of the younger entrepreneurs who are starting out kind of feel I have this mentality like I can do this. No one else can do it like I can do it. No one else knows how to get this done the way I need to get it done. But I think the greatest level of strength is to ask for help and know that you are not an island and you can be the most powerful island in the ocean, but you need people around manning the shores and helping with the, all the things that are happening on that island. So I think it makes you stronger.
Well, you go into it as you're when you first start. Well, no. When you first start, you are on top of the world. We are going to get to #1 in a year. This is easy. And then you start running into the problems. And then I mean, so many people fail because they said, I didn't know it'd be this hard. If, you know, and if I knew this, or they go for the excuse, well, the market changed and, you know, this happened, whatever it takes to get your mind to say it's okay to quit. And there's so many people that do that, and you can't do that. You can't give up. Back to your point, you have to figure out ways to talk your mind back into fighting, because it's a lonely place sometimes at the top, you know, and that's why you do need a support system around you, or a coach, or find other groups of people that can sympathize with you, you know, and be able to go through a lot of that pain, so you do you know, take it one day at a time.
So if you were to guide someone on a crisis management, just to kind of think in general terms, what are 3 things that, like, you all of a sudden you're faced with a crisis in your marriage, with your family, in your work, and, you know, wherever it is there a checklist? Like, first, let's make sure you're
Yes.
doing this.
So this I share as sort of an overall general checklist. First of all, who are the internal and external stakeholders involved? So even if it's personal, okay, is this a spat with my daughter? Well, the internal stakeholders are not just me and my daughter. It could be the rest of the family. It could be, you name it. So who are the internal and external stakeholders? If you're a business, the internal stakeholders are your employees. The external stakeholders could be the media, could be the government. So first, identify those internal and external stakeholders. Then, once you've identified them, analyze those audiences. What are the needs of those audiences you care about? So going to the personal, if it's the daughter, how does she need to receive the information? What makes her tick? If it's more of a business setting, analyze each of those audiences that are going to ultimately need to hear from you, so that this doesn't turn into some huge crisis. Then step number 3, and in the personal situation, you're the spokesperson, but in more of a business situation, identify the best spokespeople. Who's actually going to communicate to those internal and external stakeholders in the way those audiences need, so that you as a brand can influence or apologize or come out looking better or looking great. So that's the quick hit list: identify internal, external stakeholders, analyze those audiences, and then really put out the best spokespeople for all your messaging.
So in other words, when things aren't going wrong with my teenage daughter, I should have him or me be the spokesperson, or
in the situation, depending
We're not getting out of that crisis.
depending on the content. So maybe a certain part of content for your daughter, maybe Glenn is the better spokesperson for the message. In some cases, it might be you.
Trust me, I'm always like, Glenn,
But
help your help.
you're on your own island, dear.
Sometimes I feel
Yeah.
like it. That teenage
No.
island is like a Titanic.
But this
Oh.
too shall pass.
Yes, yes, right. Okay. So, you know, let's if we can get a little personal with you, you know, speaking of teenagers, I know you had a pretty traumatic life experience in your teens as a young woman. Can you expand upon that story of, you know, because adversity, we all face adversity. Many people have it in many different ways. And we have a friend who's a general captain of a prisoner of war, and he gives an incredibly compelling speech, but he always says adversity is a terrible thing to waste. And I think life will be adverse, and we will have moments. And how have you dealt with it, and how has your adversity shaped you?
Well, one of, if not the most pivotal event of my life happened about 3 weeks before I turned 12. And if we go a little earlier than that, my father was diagnosed with colon cancer at 38. He died 6 weeks after he turned 40. So my brother and I were 9 and 11 when he died. It was the most pivotal event of my life for sure. And we were already a close family. It made my mother, my brother, and I even closer. You know, things could have gone the other direction, right? So I give my mother a lot of credit for holding it all together. And keep in mind, this was in the early 80s. And my parents and I had only become US citizens about 3 years prior to that. So all of this, you know, was, wow, you know, so many things. And education was really important. We're South Asian, so that's really beat into you from a young age. A
Right.
minuses are not good enough. So that was one of the things I joke about. I had a bit of a tiger mom, but that really helped keep us stable, and it led to good high school years, good college years. Both my brother and I went on to law school. My brother is a trial attorney. I obviously didn't practice law, but in that event, what I have seen are the effects, both immediate and long term, is that I really value life, because you don't know when your last day is. And so I would say people, I joke that happy hour is my favorite meal. I always want, if the last time you were with me was celebratory, that's what I hope, whether it's at a meal, at a conference, a phone call. So I hope people take that message into their own lives. You never really know how long each of us is on this earth, and how long our parents, our families, our siblings. So that really shaped a lot of what I do. And even in my book, Communicate That, I talk about celebrating the mini wins. If you've just had a good keynote speech, or you just gave a great sales presentation, celebrate that. So, and that directly comes from how big of celebrators my parents were of birthdays, making you feel so great on your birthday. So those are the little things that we can do, and the very pivotal event that shaped myself and my brother so much in how much we value every day, and as well as those special occasions that you don't let just pass by.
You know, we work with a group called Horatio Alger, and we bring about 3,000 scholarships to young men and women who have gone through severe adversity. And it's amazing to see these kids, back to your point, you and your brother being able to go off and become lawyers and all these great things through that adversity. And you'll have some people that veer off the wrong way and other people that go the right way, but adversity, it will drive you one way or the other, I think, with a lot of young people. And you see this, and for some reason, you know, some people will go in the right direction, right? And it's wonderful to be able to support those people and the youngsters and whatnot. And so whenever we talk to young people and they've gone through a lot, like, what an amazing story to launch from, right? Because you can't go backwards. We can't change the past, but we can create an amazing future by showing people that this is not going to define us, and this is going to help us grow and become better people, right? And so I've seen almost every successful person I know has had some pretty severe adversity and trauma and other things in their life, and they say, I will show you, life, that I'm going to be better than that you're not going to hold me down. Or you go the other way, right? You end up in jail or dead or whatever, and you're like, you know, I'm a victim. So you're either going to be the victim or the victor, as they say, right?
You found in your experience, there are just some people that were built to run into the fire and others just aren't. Is it a trainable characteristic? Is it some, I mean, I sit and I just to diverge on a weird personal example, I have come upon probably 6 car accidents and people were injured, and I jump out and I run straight to the scene. I don't know why, but everyone else sits in their car and watches or videotapes, and I'm just like, is it something you're born with? Does it develop? Is it something that someone says, I'm going straight into the fire? Do you find that? Can you expand?
It's probably a combination. So in your case, Mindy, and mine, having been in TV news, like, yes, we run toward the danger.
The story.
Right. We want the story, get the story, want to be, and not only that, get it first. So there is, I think, a little bit of that that's part of someone's DNA. But then I do think a lot of it can be coachable or trainable. I always start by asking people about their inner narrative. And there's a way that I have a simple test I created called the wow factor test. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, where do you put yourself on a powerful presence scale? Not thinking about whether you're presenting or speaking, but just in general. And I do this exercise both individually and even when I'm on large stages and keynotes. I have a couple people come up on stage. I ask them this question. And sometimes people they want to be shy, or not shy, they want to be modest, and they won't say I'm a 10. they say I'm a 5 or a 6. And I say, why? Wow, do you need a hug? Because if on the inside, if on the inside you think you're a 5 or a 6, everybody on the outside, your family, your boss, your friends, they expect you to be a 10.
Right.
So what are you leaving on the table? The money you're leaving on the table, the influence. I mean, boy, when I explain this to salesperson, they come back and say, I'm going to say I'm a 10. Because if you say anything less than a 10, it doesn't mean you're perfect. It doesn't mean you know how to speak well at all times. It means that inner is pumping you out there. So I always say I'm a 10 every day. Sometimes I'm a 10 minus, sometimes I'm a 10 plus. Some days I should not talk to human beings because I'm just down in the dumps, but I'm still a 10.
Still gonna
Okay.
keep that 10.
I love
Yes.
that.
And that's the inner narrative. So I
Go
work
Derek,
with
baby.
people
Go
to
Derek.
bring that number up. We know Glenn has that 10. But the bottom line is if I can coach people to get that inner narrative up to a 10, there's really nothing they cannot do. But
That's
you have to
great. I
believe
like
it
that.
first. You have to believe it first.
Yep. I have so
Sometimes Derek
many.
thinks he's a 12.
No, but you have to convince yourself, right? Because to your point, if you walk out with a less than feeling, other people feel that as well,
Well, I always say that when I would do stage with kids or improv or, I just say, the more you buy into yourself, the more everybody else will. Like if you're on stage.
And
and
it's
you're
not
buying
about
into it,
faking. Like, I don't
No,
like this fake it
no.
till you make it. I hate that expression.
I know.
It is,
but
it,
I understand it.
and look, you can be honest. Look, I'm a 10, but today I'm feeling low. Okay.
Yeah.
If you can control your interactions that day, if you can schedule meetings around that or not have meetings that day, if that's possible, maybe do that. If you need to go get yourself your favorite coffee drink, or you need to go get a massage to kind of help boost you, whatever. That's what's important, is how do we identify our needs? So self-care goes into all this, right? If we're strung out or lack of sleep, or haven't really had a shower in 5 days, that's going to affect the inner
Right.
narrative.
Exactly.
All
And
right, we should wake up in the morning and say, okay, what's your wow factor number today? Well, after you take your shower.
I'm a 10 plus.
Well, after you.
But
Go
but
through
it is,
the
it's a mindset. You have to, if you want to be a winner, you have to keep a positive mindset. And and everyone, I've had people, how do you always have a positive mindset? And it's like, it's hard sometimes, right? But there's that saying, right? Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And so we have to remember that you have to keep the positive side going, or you're going to fall into the victim mentality, and then you're done. And it's and again, in a career, it has a lot of times where you're up and you think you're on top of the world and you can do no wrong. Cycles change, and all of a sudden you're going, was it all luck? What happened to me? How did I get down here? And if you've been around long enough, or you've talked to enough people, you can start to realize, okay, it's just my time to be in that part of the cycle. And now how am I going to get through it? Right? How am I going to get through it so I'm better? And you look at a tree, and you cut it and you trim it and you get it down. It might not look real pretty, but boy, will it grow back stronger and more healthy, And so
that's what I always say about the trees. He
I'm a
hates
tree.
to cut the trees in our yard. Hates it. I'm like, they're gonna come back stronger and beautiful. So
Absolutely,
hey, so,
they will.
we're about to wrap up here. Speaking of trees, and Christmas trees around the corner here, and we're entering into
That's a stressful time.
Yeah, we're
A lot of
entering into
crisis.
season for so many people. You want to give us a little holiday mindset going into this, and just kind of remind people what this is all about and how to stay calm.
Grace is very important, both for yourself and for others. So showing yourself grace, first of all. You don't have to go to every party. You don't have to sit next to that relative that bugs you at the meal. Like, figure out a way not to. Do what you need to do. You know yourself best. So do your own hacks or the own things you need to do. Go in with some sort of relaxation mindset. Go and get your hair done before these different events. Get a massage, have a date night with someone you care about before the big family meal. really get your mindset in the right place and set expectations, I would say low.
Set 'em
That's
low.
what,
Yeah.
set them low.
Low expectations.
You rarely hear me say that, Mindy, but I'm going to say it.
I know you
These
are
events.
set the high one. No, I've always in your podcast you talk about high expectations, but yeah, you know what? I think you set low expectations so there's no resentment built, because I think
Or no expectations.
Right?
Can we
Yeah.
walk in with no expectations? Can
Expect
we
nothing
do
and
that?
be ready for everything.
Yes, crisis aversion number 101. No expectations. Then it's just going to be what it is, right? But you go in with as much of a 10 attitude from the inside as you can, and you're probably going to have your best holiday season yet.
I love that. Book it. Let's post it. That's a great
Let's do it.
soundbite there. And so speaking of posting, where can we follow you? Where can we get your information? Where can people find you?
Well, I would love for you to go to ownyourwow.com.
Oh,
That is
wow.
Right? That is the website we're in the process, speaking of like always changing. Next year, we'll have a pretty updated site, an evolution of that site. And then the crisisfiles.com. So that is one of the places you can find the podcast, right? And that is becoming a true site come January 1. So the crisisfiles.com, or wherever you find podcasts, you can find the Crisis Files. We're all over. And then, of course, LinkedIn, Roshini Rajkumar.
You had a lot of great speakers on there. That'll be.
Yeah. Are you an Instagram? Are you an Instagrammer?
Oh yes, Roshini Rajkumar on Instagram, or the Crisis Files on Instagram.
Okay, let's just spell that out.
Oh, we'll get it. We'll put it down the bottom.
Put it
Yeah,
at the bottom.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
those
yeah.
people listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, in their podcast notes though.
But the Crisis Files is great. We're everywhere, both online and at the Crisis Files on Instagram. It would be wonderful to get your folks to follow us. We would love it. And we look
Thank
forward to
you.
having Glenn on the show very soon too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You'll be
Enjoyed
listening.
listening to you the other day. Thank you for being on our podcast today.
My
Fits
pleasure.
right with what we deal with, which is grit. So
it's all about it, and it happens. So Roshini, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, your insight, and all these wonderful nuggets. We'll be looking for you and look forward to another opportunity, and happy holidays.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays. Thank you both.
all right, take care.